Following the last video that we did, giving an introduction to the principles of measurement system analysis, in this video we're going to look more at measurement system analysis for variable equipment. So welcome back, Devin and Dawn. So Devin, maybe for variable measurement system analysis, again, maybe briefly explain what is meant by variable and maybe just give a few examples of variable measuring equipment.
Yeah, so variables, when you actually receive a value back, it's not your go, no-go gauge. It's think if you have a ruler and you're taking length or you're testing hardness, that is what is meant by variable.
Right, okay. And Dawn then, so we know there are requirements for measurement system analysis in IATF 16949. What are the different types of studies that an organization could use to understand the measurement variation for variable equipment?
Okay, so it's a common misconception really that we can only use gauge R&R, and that's kind of what we do see more often than not, which is reproducibility and repeatability. But also there are a number of others that you could use, like bias, linearity, stability. These are all within the varying reference manuals.
Right, okay, and I agree with you that that is a common misconception that MSA equals gauge R&R. And gauge R&R is a technique that organizations can use to look at the variation in a variable measurement system. But I guess for some measurement systems, maybe where there's not much human intervention, then it would be a lot of investment in time to do a gauge R&R study, but it might not be the right type of study, and bias, linearity, stability studies may be a more appropriate way to assess the measurement system variation. In audits then, Devin, what may be some of the common problems that may be found when auditing MSA for variable equipment?
Yeah, so one of the right off the bat thing that comes to my mind is the lack of statistical knowledge within that organization or the person who's performing the study themselves.
Right, okay, and I would 100% agree with you there. And there is a requirement, isn't there, in IATF 16949 about people understanding basic statistical concepts. And certainly, if we're going to do measurement system analysis, if we haven't got an understanding of basic statistical concepts, we're not going to be able to effectively interpret the results.
Absolutely.
So no, I think that's something that auditors should check in how is the organization define the competence requirements for people involved in MSA, and how do they understand those basic statistical concepts? Yeah. Dawn, anything else from common problems that are found?
I think sometimes leading on from what you've just been talking about is this inability to read the results properly.
Yeah.
So certainly with the R&R, they're looking for this magic figure at the bottom, and kind of disregarding anything else in there, which could be telling you, certainly if you've got a high level of EV, equipment variation, then there could be some problems with the equipment. With the AV, when you're looking at appraiser variation, then it could be a training issue, but sometimes these aren't picked up on. And also some organisations, shall we say, could be massaging figures to get to this ideal number. And so
but from I think what you're both saying, that sort of links back to this lack of basic statistical awareness, that people are putting numbers in but they don't really understand the numbers coming out. And they would just hone in, for example, in a gauge R&R study, hone into the gauge R&R percentage and not look at the equipment variation, the appraiser variation, the number of distinct categories, the part variation. So as auditors, I think we need to challenge the organization on the interpretation of the results. Devin, what about acceptance criteria then for a study?
Yeah, so once again, we have this theme, right? Acceptance criteria, importantly, comes from the customer. So customer-specific requirements should define that.
Right. And I think that's really important for the listeners to understand, because I see too many instances where when you ask auditors that question, oh, gauge R&R has to be less than 10%. And I always say, well, where is that specified?
Right.
It's not in the IATF standard. We have to understand customer specific requirements. So thank you for your input. Let's summarize then. So organizations will use variable measuring equipment. Devin's given some examples. For example, it could be micrometers, it could be hardness testers, tensile testers, but where we're actually getting a variable measurement value from the measurement system. To make sure that we understand the variation within the measurement system, the organization has to do measurement system analysis for each type of measuring test equipment system specified on the control plan. For variable equipment, it could be the organization does a gauge R&R study, but for some types of measurement system, that may not be the appropriate type. So maybe the organization would use bias, linearity, or stability studies. And as Devin explained, the acceptance criteria for any MSA study should link to the relevant reference manual, either specified by the customer or specified by the organization.